Auven.
On March 6, 2011, in the southern Syrian city of Daraa, a group of schoolboys are taken by security forces. They had written anti-government graffiti on a wall. Their families ask for them back. Nobody listens. Within days, the city begins to move. Men gather outside Al-Omari Mosque after Friday prayers. They demand the release of the boys. They demand an end to corruption. They demand political freedom. Security forces open fire. People are killed. The funerals become protests. The protests become larger, and the map of Syria begins to change. This is how the Syrian Civil War unfolded. At first, it does not look like a civil war. It looks like another Arab Spring uprising. Tunisia has already forced out its president. Egypt has forced out Hosni Mubarak. Libya is falling into armed rebellion. In Syria, Bashar al-Assad has been president since 2000. Before him, his father Hafez al-Assad ruled for 3 decades. The state is built around the Ba'ath Party, the security services, the army, and a narrow circle of loyal elites. Daraa is far from the center of power. Damascus is about 60 miles, or 100 kilometers to the north. But Daraa has something Damascus cannot control. It has momentum. By late March 2011, demonstrations spread to Damascus, Homs, Hama, Banias, Latakia, and suburbs around the capital. The government promises reforms. It also sends security forces into the streets. The more force it uses, the more funerals it creates. The more funerals it creates, the more people gather. By April, tanks enter Daraa. The uprising now has a geography. Daraa in the south, Homs in the center, Hama farther north, Idlib near the Turkish border, Damascus suburbs around the capital. Each place matters for a different reason. Daraa is the spark. Homs becomes a symbol. Idlib becomes a rear base. Damascus is the prize. Then the army begins to fracture. Some soldiers refuse to fire on protesters. Some defect. By mid-2011, defectors and armed civilians begin forming local armed groups. The Free Syrian Army becomes a loose label for many of them. It is not one clean army. It is a patchwork. Local brigades, neighborhood commanders, smugglers, former soldiers, men defending towns that the state is shelling. The war begins to spread along roads.
In Syria,
geography is everything.
The west of the
country holds most of the population. Damascus sits in the southwest. Homs sits in the middle, connecting Damascus to the coast. Aleppo sits in the north, near Turkey. The Euphrates runs through the east, toward Iraq. Whoever controls these corridors controls movement, supply, and survival. By 2012, Aleppo is split. Rebel fighters push into the eastern districts. Government forces hold the west. The city becomes one of the most important battlefields of the war. Street by street, the front line freezes inside Syria's largest city before the war. Factories are looted. Apartment blocks are emptied. Families cross from one district to another with bags in their hands, hoping the next street is safer than the last. In Damascus, the same pattern appears in the suburbs. Daraya, Duma, Eastern Ghouta, Yarmouk. Places close enough to threaten the capital, but not strong enough to take it. The government surrounds them. Siege becomes a weapon. Food, medicine, fuel, and movement become things that can be turned off. The opposition grows, but it also fragments. Some groups remain nationalist. Some become Islamist. Some receive support through Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, or other channels. The government receives backing from Iran and Hezbollah. Later, Russia enters directly. The war is no longer only Syrian. It is local, regional, and international at the same time. Then another force rises in the east. In 2013 and 2014, the Islamic State expands out of Iraq and across eastern Syria. It takes Raqqa. It moves through oil fields, desert roads, border crossings, and towns along the Euphrates. In June 2014, it declares a caliphate across territory in Iraq and Syria. The Syrian war now has a second war inside it. ISIS fights the government. It fights rebels. It fights Kurdish forces. It murders civilians. It enslaves Yazidis in Iraq. It films executions. It turns Raqqa into its Syrian capital. The international response changes immediately. The United States builds a coalition against ISIS. Airstrikes begin. Kurdish-led forces, later organized under the Syrian Democratic Forces, become the coalition's main partner on the ground in northeast Syria. Now the map has at least four colors. The Assad government holds Damascus, the coast, parts of Homs and Hama, and western Aleppo. Rebel groups hold parts of the north and south. ISIS holds large areas in the east. Kurdish-led forces hold much of the northeast. Around them are foreign militaries, intelligence services, militias, and air forces. Syria becomes a battlefield where everyone says they are fighting terrorism, but not everyone means the same enemy. In August 2013, the war crosses another line. In eastern Ghouta, outside Damascus, rockets carrying sarin hit opposition-held areas. More than 1,000 people are reported killed. The Syrian government denies responsibility. Western governments blame Assad's forces. Syria agrees to join the Chemical Weapons Convention and declare its stockpile. But chemical attacks do not disappear from the war. International investigators later find that banned agents, including chlorine and sarin, were used repeatedly in Syria, with several attacks attributed to Assad's forces by OPSIW-linked investigations. The war keeps moving. In 2015, Assad is in trouble. Rebel groups gain ground in Idlib and threaten the coastal heartland. ISIS controls Palmyra and much of the east. Government forces are stretched. Iran and Hezbollah are already deeply involved, but it is not enough. On September 30th, 2015, Russia launches airstrikes in Syria in support of Assad. The map changes again. Russian air power gives the government something it had been losing: momentum. Airstrikes hit opposition territory. Government forces push around Aleppo, Homs, Damascus, and the coast. The war becomes more brutal from above. Hospitals are struck. Markets are struck. Rescue workers dig through concrete dust with their hands. Russia says it is fighting terrorists. Opposition areas say they are being crushed. In late 2016, eastern Aleppo falls. It is one of the turning points of the war. After years of siege and bombardment, rebel fighters and civilians are evacuated from the eastern districts. The government retakes the whole city. For Assad, it is a strategic victory. For the opposition, it is a disaster. For civilians, it is another map redrawn over their homes. The government repeats the model elsewhere. Besiege, bomb, negotiate evacuation, retake. This happens around Damascus. It happens in Homs. It happens in parts of the south. Opposition fighters and civilians are often sent north toward Idlib. Idlib becomes the last major rebel-held province, a place where displaced families, Islamist factions, local councils, Turkish-backed groups, and Hayat Tahrir al-Sham all exist in the same crowded corner of the country. Meanwhile, ISIS loses its state. In 2017, the Syrian Democratic Forces capture Raqqa with support from the US-led coalition. In 2019, ISIS loses its last territorial pocket in Baghouz, near the Iraqi border. But the group does not vanish. It turns back into an insurgency. Cells remain in the desert. Camps and prisons in northeast Syria hold thousands of people linked to the group. The caliphate is gone. The problem is not. By 2020, the war seems frozen. The government controls most of Syria's population centers. The opposition holds Idlib and Turkish-backed zones along the northern border. The SDF holds much of the northeast. Turkey holds influence across parts of the north. The United States keeps forces in the east and northeast. Russia and Iran remain tied to Damascus. Israel strikes Iranian-linked targets. Syria is divided, but the front lines mostly stop moving. For several years, Assad appears to have survived. Arab states begin restoring contact. Syria returns to the Arab League in 2023. By late 2024, many governments treat Assad as brutal but durable. According to the UK House of Commons Library, He controlled around 60 to 70% of Syrian territory as of November 2024. The war looks unresolved, but no longer fast-moving. Then it breaks open. On November 27, 2024, opposition forces launch a sudden offensive in northwest Syria. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham plays a leading role. Other armed groups move too. Aleppo falls with startling speed. Hama follows. Then Homs. In the south, local opposition forces rise again. Government positions collapse faster than almost anyone expects. The road to Damascus opens. On December 8, 2024, opposition forces enter the capital. Bashar al-Assad leaves Syria and is reported to have received asylum in Russia. More than 5 decades of Assad family rule end in days. Prisons are opened. Statues are pulled down. Families search detention centers for names, papers, bones, anything.
The end of Assad,
But the end of Assad is not the end of the story. Ahmed al-Sharaa, the former leader of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, becomes Syria's transitional president in 2025. A temporary constitutional framework follows. A new parliament begins taking shape. Foreign governments test the new authorities. Some sanctions are reconsidered. Refugees begin returning. Others wait. Millions of Syrians are still displaced. Unshkir describes Syria as one of the world's largest displacement crises, with more than 12 million Syrians forcibly displaced and millions still needing protection or assistance. The numbers are difficult because the war destroyed the systems that count them. The UN Human Rights Office identified at least 350,209 people killed between March 2011 and March 2021. It also warned that this was a minimum verified count, not the true total. Other monitors give higher estimates. The exact number may never be known.
Some people died under
bombardment, some in prison, some at checkpoints. Some disappeared so completely that their families still do not know which category they belong to. As of 2026, Syria is no longer Assad's Syria, but it is not whole. The interim authorities control major western cities, including Damascus and Aleppo. Kurdish-led forces remain a key actor in the northeast. Turkish-backed groups still matter in the north. Sweda and other areas remain politically and militarily sensitive. Israel continues to strike inside Syria. Russia negotiates over its bases. Former regime networks, sectarian fears, revenge killings, chemical weapons remnants, prisons, missing persons, and destroyed cities all sit inside the same country. This is the map the war left behind. Not one clean front line, not one revolution, not one foreign intervention, not one terrorist group. A protest becomes a crackdown becomes an insurgency becomes a proxy war becomes a state collapse. And after the collapse, the hardest question is not how Assad fell. It is who now controls the pieces of Syria.